Hello and welcome to the two-man Power Trip of Wrestling. My host, JP John Poz. With me today, returning guest, very special guest, former WCW Superstar, former TNA Superstar. He's, of course, Allan Funk, a.k.a. Kwee Wee. Welcome back. How you doing?
Hey, appreciate it, John. Thanks, buddy.
What is going on in your world? What are you up to?
You know what? I don't know if I talked to you last time about this. I drive truck now, so I haul oversized pre-stressed concrete.
Oh, okay.
It is a good
Interesting.
job, man. I love it. I was hauling heavy equipment like big excavators and stuff, which I love because when I before I got into wrestling, that's what I was working in a landfill running heavy equipment and this and that. So I love heavy equipment stuff like that. Just makes you feel like you're in control of something when you're running that stuff and running around the roads.
Yeah, very interesting. Well, that's a lot different than pro wrestling. That's for sure.
Well, unfortunately, I didn't make millions of dollars in WCW. They weren't throwing around the money my way when we were all getting out of the power plant. So, unfortunately, you got to do what you got to do, man. And I grew up as a blue collar. My dad raised me to be a hard worker, and luckily, I got that instilled in me, which never deterred me from living under a bridge after the wrestling.
What the heck did you have to do to become that like driver? What did you have to like go through to get that? Just a CDL or what?
Well, you know what? Everything in the world's a work, man. So you got to. Ever since I've been in the wrestling business, you incorporate. Even if you like, I've always been the type of person that I've I learn as like if I do something, I'm better learning than if I'm not doing it. If you're sitting here telling me what to do, I'm the type of guy I got to do it. Just let me do it. So when I started, I always wanted to get my CDL for whatever reason. I just always wanted my CDL. I wanted to be able to drive a semi and do stuff like that. So, which is part of my younger years growing up in Ohio doing stuff like that. So I went and got my CDL at a private school. Which if anybody is interested in driving a semi truck and want to get a CDL, please do not go to these places like and I'll say that as by name, like any place like CR England, Swift. These companies offer you a free CDL. You go to their school, but they got you locked into like a 2 or 3 year contract, and they screw these drivers so bad it ain't even funny. So I just paid the $3,000, went to this local place around where I live in Georgia, and I think it was 8 weeks. I got my CDL on the weekends. So you're able to do that on the weekends, or you can go all week if you want. But yeah, I just got my CDL through that. And then a guy I used to wrestle with in Georgia when I was at the power plant, his name was Brian Ballrath. Uh, he worked with a lot of the old school guys, you know, like Junkyard Dog, Abby, Abdullah the Butcher, all the old guys in WCW. So I saw him one day and he goes, "Hey man, I drive truck." And I said, "Are you kidding me?" So and I was doing armed security. So I was like, you know what? I could make better money driving a truck than I'm doing this armed security gimmick. So I hooked up with him. He got me a company or a job with the company he was driving. So him and I were driving out to California from Georgia every week. And we'd leave Sunday morning and get back about Thursday, Friday, and then do it all again the following week. But I hated it because I couldn't work out. I was losing weight. I got real skinny. Was eating like crap on the road and just hated it. So then, yeah, normally most truck driving jobs, you got to have 2 years experience to get a good job. So of course I lied, oh yeah, I got experience. I've made up a resume and, so I got his job working this oversized concrete, which normally you got to have a lot of experience doing that because it's pretty dangerous. So I just got in there and from day one, I loved it. So I started doing that. And then I went hauling heavy equipment and big excavators. And then I went back to hauling the concrete just within the last year.
Nice, interesting. And of course, it all goes back to WCW. It all ties back in. That's crazy, right?
Yeah, it's funny how that happens, right? Where I met this guy I used to wrestle with from the power plant. He never trained. He might have trained at the power plant a little bit when it was like before it got all commercialized. But he did. We did this show in Atlanta from the WCW power plant. And if you ever happen to interview like Chuck Palumbo or Mike Sanders or Rick Cornell or Yellow Skipper, all these guys, we wrestled every Friday night at this place called Good Old Days. and it was on Roswell Road in Atlanta, Georgia, which is a pretty popular area town. It was across the street from this old club down there that they've since shut down. It was called American Pie. So we'd go to this place. It was like an old biker bar. It was called Good Old Days, and they had a wrestling ring set up outside with this tarp over it, and it had windows and all this stuff in it. It was a cool little setup, actually. And we got this place so packed on Friday nights that the owners started loving us. His name was Frank. He actually owned a wrestling school after this, the WWA 4. Have you ever heard of that one down in Atlanta?
Yeah. Yep.
That Hughes.
Curtis Hughes.
Mr. Yeah.
Yep.
So this guy Frank was the name owner of this club. So he started that wrestling school because he met all these guys after that from wrestling there. And dude, the guys we used to get in this place was ridiculous on Friday nights. So like let's see, Ray Lloyd used to come watch us, Canyon used to come watch us wrestle, Kidman, Saturn, Ron Reese, all these guys that lived in Atlanta would then come to this wrestling show because they heard it was a pretty cool wrestling show, and the guys from the power plant were wrestling there. So like I wrestled Jindrak and O'Hare and Rick Cornell and all in remember Jerry the Wall was with Berlin, Alex, right? Yep. So all Elix Skipper, Sam Roman, all the guys, Johnny the Bull, we all wrestled in this place. Mike Sanders, Dale Torberg, all these guys wrestled in this place, and it was awesome. And I was a bad guy, and I got so much heat in this place that I literally had to have. I mean, guys were wanting to kill me. They wanted to freaking come after me with knives. I used to have the cops escort me back to my car. My ex-wife hated it. She was like afraid that she was going to get killed coming to these wrestling shows. But I had so much heat, dude. It was so fun. And one night, this American Pie, like I said, was across the street. And you talk about thousands of people at this American Pie. Like, it was the place to go to on the weekends. So I used to get on the mic and talk shit to these people across the street and get them to pay money to come over to Good Old Days. So the owner was like, oh, my God, dude, like we'd have thousands of people in this place. And I guess it really didn't have a fire code because it was outside. So people were just lining up to get in the door. And we had a freaking blast, man. And it was one of the funnest venues I've ever worked in as far as the wrestling business goes.
Man, that's so cool. Did it like anybody film it, or was it filmed, or no?
There's some of it on film. You can find Jindrak might have some on film. But he's posted a little clip of him and stuff at this place, and it was I forgot about Sonny Siaki. So me and Sonny, we did on a Saturday, we start doing Saturday matinee shows for like kids there in this bar. So we had a lot of kids coming like on Saturdays, and so then they started doing strongman contests there and with the wrestling on the Saturday matinee, and it was just all around cool venue, man. It was just it was fun atmosphere. It was great to wrestle there.
Man, all these cool WCW guys, like from the power plant era. There's so many good pieces of talent that kind of come in and out when you really look at it.
Oh yeah, dude. We had so many guys in and out of there from WCW. It was awesome. And even some of the guys like Glacier and Canyon, all these guys, they wanted to get involved in this. They wanted to start doing shows there because there were so many people there, and it was a great crowd to wrestle in front of.
How was the pay?
Was pretty cool.
Pay okay?
The pay was horrible. From what I remember, I think we got $20 on Friday night. And if you were the champion, which I was quite a bit because I was pretty over, I think you got 50 if I remember correctly. And then of course you got free food. So, we all go there and get free nachos and chicken and shit like that,
I love that. That's
Plus,
great.
We weren't making any money, so we were all broke. We're all broke trying to make money, and some of us had jobs. I got some of these guys jobs, like Rick Cornell and Sanders, and trying to remember who. Sean Shocker, he passed away. I got all these guys jobs that I met this guy in the gym. He used to set up these casino nights and have all these trucks, and we'd haul all the stuff in for him. And we're just big dumb wrestlers hauling all this heavy stuff in for him at these things, and that's how some of us made our money back then, because we could work nights for this guy. And if you went and tore these shows down and it only took you an hour, he paid you a 4-hour minimum. And from what I remember, he was paying us like $25 an hour at the time. So, hell, all those guys on the weekends, if you weren't booked on any shows, made extra money doing that.
Yeah, not too shabby, doing that, that's for sure. So are you in the power plant while you're doing these shows, or you're not quite in the power plant yet?
No, yeah, we were in the power plant. They didn't mind us doing the shows, but shortly after we started these shows, that's when Paul Orndorff took over the power plant. We were actually under a contract shortly after. We weren't on contract when we were doing these shows. Once we got our contract and stuff, WCW stepped in, and I think we did these shows for a few weeks after we got our contracts because they didn't really know what they wanted to do with us, and they weren't sure all the rules they wanted to apply to us working and stuff. So I think we wrestled a little bit under contract, and then Paul Orndorff, we actually went to the main WCW offices, which was on Log Cabin Drive. And that was kind of like the WCW corporate office where like JJ Dillon was, and Janie Engel, the attorney. And so Paul Orndorff had an office there and stuff. So he took over. Then they started sending us up to Nashville, like Thursday, Friday nights, and we'd wrestle with Burt Prentice up in Nashville and his little loop up in Nashville for the weekend.
How did you even get in the power plant to begin with? Like, how do you get noticed to get in there, or do you?
I did my 3-day tryout. Me and my ex-wife, we used to watch, the Nitro and stuff, and I wanted to get in wrestling so bad, but I'm from a small town, Alliance, Ohio, and I didn't have any, I knew nobody. I didn't know anybody. I'm starting at the bottom of the barrel, man. So you always see these WCW power plant commercials where the big boys train. Yep. And so I told my wife, I said, I don't know if this is going to be the best route to go, but I got to try something. So, I called up, and I think I actually talked to Sarge on the phone when I called. And he's like, let me get you in touch with the lady that was running it. She was the secretary. So he gave me her, and she said, yeah, you got to pay $250. You come down here for this 3-day tryout. And then, if you do good, they offer you a contract, or they don't really offer you a contract. They offer you to come back down there and train, but then they want you to pay the $3,000 for the training, which I never had to pay, thank God. But that's how I got into the power plant. So I go down there for my 3-day training, my 3-day tryout, which if you ever watch the history of WCW and the A&Es, what was that called? It was a documentary on the real story of pro wrestling, or the one they had on A&E. Do you remember that one?
Yep.
So that was when the WCW power plant started getting a lot of recognition during that, because they went in there with the cameras and showed some of the tryout. But dude, that pay $250 to get your ass kicked for 10, 12 hours a day was brutal, man. And I don't know if I talked to you before about the tryouts, but the tryouts were so brutal, man. They were beyond brutal. Like people go down there, and if you watch some of them, the A&E special they had, and they show some of these guys that literally there was a guy in there that shit his pants. They kept grabbing him by his ankles, pulling him back he was trying to crawl to the door, because you do so many squats and stuff, you can't really, and I'll attest to this. You do so many squats that you have trouble walking.
Right. Yeah.
And in between the squats and the push-ups and the gauntlet, they call it, where you run in the rings and do flips and do back bumps and run the ropes, and your lats are all black and blue, bleeding and stuff, and you hit the ropes, which the WCW had cables, so that's why your lats got so bad. But no matter what I tell you how these tryouts were, a lot of people don't believe you. They think you're making it up just because you went through it, and you're like, you're full of shit. There's no way it was that hard, which it was the hardest thing I ever did in my life. And there's guys that can attest to this that come in there. There were good. I mean, ask Batista. He went through it. He never made it. But and I think Batista thought it was a bunch of horse shit, which there was a lot of horse shit in the power plant. But if you made it through there, it's just something nobody can take away from you. The brutality of making it through the 3-day tryout, which, like Reno, Rick Cornell, he actually failed the first time, and actually was dumb enough to pay. And I'll say that because me and him he's a real good friend of mine. Had he didn't have the mentality like him and I both have, the blue collar, coming from, towns that you had to work for what you had. he actually paid the 250 twice and went through the tryout, not only once, but the second time.
Oh my God.
So my hat's off to Rick for actually, because had I not made it the first time, I would have been dumb enough to do the same thing. But thank God I never had to do that. So I got a lot of respect for Rick Cornell, not only because of that, but that alone right there gives me that I went through it, that he did it twice, gives me a lot of respect for that guy.
And if you think about it, it's like, man, you make it through, but it's almost like a drill sergeant, right? I mean, like an actual
It's
military
worse. It's worse.
training.
You can ask guys, and I've talked to guys that come through there that've been through basic training and all, Marines, Army, boot camp, whatever. They said they would rather go back to boot camp and do the 12-week boot camp where they did instead of the 3-day trial at the power plant. Because it's that brutal. You can't walk. Your legs cramp up, dude. And I've told this story 1,000 times, and some people still don't believe me. Excuse me. When I did my trial, I was so beat up. I mean, I had a broken nose. I got my nose broke the first day. Because like you say, do you remember Chase Tatum?
Yeah.
The guy that died.
Yeah.
He was in the No Limit Soldier gimmick with Brad Armstrong stuff. So Chase Tatum was there. You had Prince Iakea was down during my trial. And Prince Iakea was a legit badass. If nobody knows this about Prince, he was a legit shooter. And Prince had that attitude about him where he was a badass and he don't give a damn who you are. He was going to kick your ass. And that's just how I know Prince. And I got a lot of respect for Prince Iakea. Mike's his real name. And I became good friends with Mike after that. And he actually gave me a pair of wrestling boots. Him and I became so good buddies. But Prince was down there. And in between, like I said, all this, as soon as you start this power plant, Sarge gives you a bucket, and Pistol Pez Watley was down there as well, and he was a badass too. So you do all these squats. I guarantee you we did 1,500 squats a day, if not more. In between that, you're doing sit-ups, you're doing push-ups. They're throwing you, they're literally grabbing you, throwing you in your ring, kicking the living shit at you. Like 3 or 4 guys would just start kicking the shit at you. Like you were in a gang, like trying to do the indoctrination into a gang. You ever seen these videos where these gang? It was kind of like that. Like they would literally wrestle you, and see how tough you were to see if you were going to quit. Like I said, I got my nose broke. I got blood all over my nose. I got Prince Iakea beating the shit out of me, stretching me, choking me out every which way to Sunday. Sarge yelling at you, Pistol Pez yelling at you. I mean, it was crazy. It was crazy.
Why was it like that? Was it literally to get people to quit and just take the money and get them to quit, or what was the deal with that?
It was for that, for the reason of trying to get you to quit, yes, but it wasn't because they just wanted to take your money, which they did. And it was about money. Don't get me wrong, but it was more whether you had hard enough to whether you were going to quit. They wanted to see if you were going to get your ass kicked and just fucking fold up and cry and roll into a ball and say, fuck it, I'm done. Which is why if you make it through there though, you got to respect everybody in that building, including Sarge. And then you get treated a little different. So it is a respect thing. It's a gut check time. It's all that.
It's one of those things where, like said, like some of the guys like Batista didn't even want to go through with it because it was crazy. It was just almost too much.
Well, from what I heard, I wasn't there during his trial, but he didn't make it through. And I mean, Batista, let's be honest, he was big and he was muscular. Yeah. And I mean, I'm talking, I met guys from bodybuilding that Akam Albrecht was his name, which I can't remember what he went by.
The Brackets.
Yes, that guy. So he went through there. You got guys from all different sports, professional, hockey, professional football, baseball. They wanted to come through that stuff because at the time wrestling was huge. So these guys were trying to get in there. And I really don't ever know why some of them pro athletes come down there to do the tryouts, because back then it was a little different. And if any of those guys probably would have contacted the office, they probably could have just walked in there and not even really like Goldberg. He really didn't have a tryout per se.
Right.
He trained in the power plant like the Big Show, and they say the Big Show and like High Voltage and all these guys went through the power plant, which is horseshit. They didn't go through the power plant. They trained in there. And some of the other guys like, Chase Tatum, and there was a guy named, what was his name? Lorenzo. shoot, the older I get, I have trouble with these guys, remembering these guys' names because I haven't seen them in 25 years. But there was a lot of guys that were on different kind of deals. They were on deals, but they trained at the power plant. They really didn't go through the tryouts. They kind of did a short, crappy version of the 3-day tryout, and then they were already on deals anyway. So these guys would come in the power plant and just sit in the ring. They would watch us train, and they wouldn't do shit. And then when it came time to go into the main office, when Paul Orndorff was taking all these guys, they didn't get jobs because they were lazy. They never wanted to put the work in. They wanted to get paid, but they didn't want to put the work in.
I know there was Bob Sapp was down there, Sam Greco. I mean, this is a little bit after you, obviously, but they would be down there.
No. They came in there when I was in there. That was
okay.
Yeah. So I was good friends with Bob Sapp and Sam Greco. They were pretty good guys, and they weren't lazy. They were a little lazy. They did stuff that we had to do, but they didn't have to do 100% of what we did.
Right.
Now I'd never call Sam Greco lazy because he worked hard in the K1 and he was a champion.
Yes.
And I got a lot of respect for the guy. Yep. And he was a good athlete. He wasn't a good wrestler. I don't want to sound like I'm taking anything away from him, but he just wasn't. So in the wrestling business, you could be the best athlete in K1 like he was. He was a K1 kickboxing champion. I don't want to take nothing away from him.
Yeah.
But wrestling's a little different. Bob sat the same way. He was a hell of an athlete, huge guy. He was an incredible human being, but he just never got the wrestling business. He just wasn't good in the wrestling business, and that's okay. He was still a good guy and great athlete, and he made his money in the MMA afterwards. But some guys just can never grasp the wrestling. Even guys that are getting paid in the wrestling business still can't grasp it. And that's kind of as me, and I don't want to speak for anybody else, but I know other people because I've spoken to them. That was the part of the wrestling business that really drove me crazy. Where, like myself, I was and I don't want to take nothing away from myself either, but I don't want to feel like I'm bragging, but I was an unbelievable wrestling talent. I did what I needed to do to get to where I was, and I should have got more not given to me, but I should have had more time on TV, however you want to say it, more of a push, the push, just because of the hard work. And I'm not just saying that because it's me. Also, Rick Cornell never got to do he got. Even Elix Skipper and Sam Roman and guys like that, even though we got on TV and like Chuck Palumbo got more time on WWE after we left WWE and stuff, but all of us deserved whatever we got in the wrestling business, and it wasn't given to us. Now I'm a little bitter at the wrestling business because hindsight, looking back on what happened to us, and then going into WWE with like John Cena and Randy Orton, Batista, and all these guys. We're training with these guys, and Umaga, 3-second warning or 3-minute warning, whatever. Rosie and Jamal, Steve Bradley, which was a great talent, rest his soul. Lance Cade, which rest his soul as well. And all these guys we trained with, those guys were on a different deal because they come from Memphis. So they were treated a lot different than the WCW guys. And again, I'm not taking anything away from these guys. I was friends with all these guys. But the fact of the matter is they all got treated different than the WCW guys. It was night and day, the different treatment that we got compared to the guys that came from Memphis and the guys that were down in OVW. Because we were in Les Thatcher School, the OVW or the Heartland Wrestling, HWA.
Yep.
And we got treated just like we did in the power plant before we even got contracts. You went in there and you got treated like shit. You did this and this, and you got, it was kind of like all right back over again to the drill sergeant shit, where you went in there and you had to be at the school or you got disciplined. And even though Steve Bradley and like Eddie Fatu, which was Umaga, these guys had to be there, but they still didn't get treated like we did, which was really discouraging.
Yeah, just like the power plant, right? I mean, you guys had to go through stuff, and some of the other guys didn't. I didn't know high voltage didn't actually go through. I figured that they were like the power plant guys.
I mean, well, like I said, they trained there, but they didn't have to go through what we had to go through, and they didn't go through the 3-day trial. They were already on a deal,
And obviously, Big Show, right? Did Ron Reese go through the tryout?
Now Reese went through the tryout. Now I didn't go through his tryout with him, but I expect just because of his size. Now, don't get me wrong, he's a hell of a worker, and he used to go through a lot of the stuff we went through, but I find it hard to believe that he went through the same stuff that some of the other guys did, just because of his size.
Right,
if nothing
right,
else, you know.
right. You got to be a little bit different.
Plus, I mean, dude, that dude was 700, 7 foot tall, 500 pounds. Like he could only, as much as Ron could do, he was still limited. You know what I'm saying?
Right, right.
So,
I was just talking to former power plant guy Luther Biggs went
Luther,
through the power plant.
Great dude. And Luther and Ron are real good buddies. And Ray Lloyd, all three of those guys are real good buddies. But Luther went through the power plant. Same with Reese, and Luther's a great dude, man.
Did you ever say to Sarge, like, Sarge, what's going on here? What's going on with the power plant? It's like too tough almost.
Well, no. I was one of Sarge's boys. I think I could say that. After we actually went, so when Paul Orndorff come down, there was a power plant that was on Carroll Drive in Atlanta. And it was a friggin' shithole. And that's where a lot of the tryouts that you saw on TV were conducted. Now, right about the time I got in there and did my tryout, within a year, Paul Orndorff, so Rick Rude came down there and I became good friends with Rick Rude. So Rick and Paul were really good buddies. So at this time, actually, Rick Rude actually died in the power plant before we went to the main office. He died. He went home one weekend. He was telling me he was going home. So he goes, I'm going down to Florida this weekend and I'm going to hang out or whatever, this and that. So I said, all right, cool, man. I'll see you next week. So then the next week came, Rick never showed up. Well, Paul comes into the door, and this is when we first started seeing Paul Orndorff. So Paul Orndorff comes in. He goes, everybody gather around. I got something to tell you. Rick Rude passed away this weekend, and he told us, and I don't think there's any problem with me saying this because I'm sure I don't really know if anybody knows this or not. But Paul said Rick died. He had an overdose on GHB. And I don't know if you know what GHB is, but it was kind of like that blue nitro stuff you used to be able to get in like GNC. It was guys would take like a cap full of it and it would or release your growth hormone and put you in a deep sleep. And some people call it the date rape drug because it's liquid. You could pour like a little capful in a bottle in a girl's drink and get them fucked up. And that's why they call it the date rape drug.
Right. Yep.
So, and a lot of guys and wrestlers at this time in the bodybuilding wrestler type world industry, guys were always excessive. If I'm going to take 2 pain pills, give me 5. If I'm going to do a cap full of GHB, it's all, and I'm talking a cap full, like a small cap on a small water bottle, like a 16-ounce water bottle, the cap full, that's a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to be careful with this stuff. And a lot of guys would take that and go, that ain't shit for me. Like, I'm 250, I'm 275. Give me some more. But the problem with this stuff is 1 capful alone is a lot. But a lot of these guys would drink with it and they would amplify the effects of the GHB.
Yep.
Gotcha. I believe that's how Rick Rude died. And that's what Paul Orndorff told us. So, and I talked to Paul a little bit more about it, just me and him together individually because I was pretty close with Paul at the time. And I always went to his office and talked to him about stuff. And he liked me because he told me I always reminded him of him. And my body was always in good shape and I was real intense and he loved it. So that's how I became better friends with Paul than a lot of the other guys.
With Rude, was he actually training to get back in the ring? Because that was kind of what everyone said his goal was, to get back in the ring.
Yeah, he was. I trained with him every day down there. And, he got in the ring with us and was teaching us stuff. And he was actually doing a lot of the stuff we were doing. He was just trying to get back in. What's that?
Was he bumping too?
Oh, yeah. He was bumping. Now, he didn't bump as much as we did, but he was in there doing some of the drills with us, warming up. And, he was getting ready to try to get in ring shape and come back into the wrestling business. Yeah.
Because, the Lloyds of London thing obviously was kind of what held him off. You got to pay off that insurance policy, right? So he's not really supposed to be wrestling or bumping, right? Because, he broke quote
Yeah,
unquote
you
broke
know
his
what? He
neck.
did say something about the Lloyd's of London deal, but I didn't really know too much about it. He didn't really say too much about it, but he did say something about it, but he never went in depth about it. And that's same with Bob Sapp got a Lloyd's of London policy too.
Really? I didn't ever do that.
Yeah, he
Interesting.
told me about it in the power plant. Him and I think there was another football player in there too, and I can't remember who he was, but he was a pretty popular football player. And I remember I was doing cardio with Bob Sapp once, and it was something to do with his. It was an injury or something. He got a Lloyd of London's policy from foot, leg, arm, hand, something like that. Yeah, I do remember him telling me about that as well.
So if Rude's bumping around, he was probably kind of getting closer or preparing himself to get close to an
Yeah,
injury.
he was in great shape. I mean, Rick Rude wasn't the hugest, biggest, guy, but he was lean and
Oh, he's in
muscular
awesome shape. Yeah. Oh my God.
he was in great shape, man. He looked like the old Rick Rude when I was training with him and he was trying to make his comeback. Yeah.
Man, what a damn shame. Would have been awesome to get him back. Obviously, he missed all those years after
Yeah.
'94 to that neck injury.
Yeah. So I don't know what, he did when he went back home, but obviously he was partying a little bit, and that's the weekend he died.
Yeah. Oof. Damn. What a shame.
Yeah.
And Orndorff, right? He gets put in charge of the power plant. How tough was he? He seems like he was kind of like got that
Well,
iron hand.
he was a different kind of tough. He wasn't Sarge. He let Sarge handle the businesses, when we started warming up and stuff. Now, what I do remember was when Paul took over, and oh my God, I wish I had this, but I don't have it. I lost it somewhere in my divorce in the transition with all my crap, moving back and forth. He gave us each a handbook that he wrote out, or I don't know how, whatever. He had a handbook. He gave us the Paul Orndorff handbook and I can't remember, but I think Luther might have this. I think I talked to Luther about this. He might still have his. And it was setting up a match, like a baby face and a heel, how stuff should be set up. And man, I wish I had that. So Paul would come in the ring and work with us on more heel stuff because Paul's a great heel.
Yeah.
But he was a little hands-on, but the thing that motivated Paul was I don't want to make Paul look bad because he's not here to defend himself. Not that I hated Paul. I love Paul to death, man. Him and I became pretty close when we were training together down at the power plant, but he was motivated by pushing you in a way that almost hurt you, if that makes any sense. Like, example, one day we were doing and now him and I thought were pretty close. We were good friends. And he was pretty good friends with Chuck Palumbo as well, because Chuck was a mechanic, and Chuck used to go to his house and work on his Land Cruiser, his Toyota Land Cruiser. So Paul was real big on Chuck, helping him do stuff on his Land Cruiser. So he became good friends with Chuck that way. And me and Chuck's relationship was a little different. It was more about the intensity of the wrestling, which that's how him and I connected. So one day we're in there doing backgrounds. So, and I remember I was just talking to Mike Sanders recently about this because Mike got married recently and I was at his wedding. So Paul calls me in the ring to do background because he knows I know what I'm doing and he wants to show people. So he shoots me off. He's giving me a backdrop. Now, when I mean a backdrop, he's really trying to get me up in the air. He's trying to hurt me because he's in one of them moods where, and if anybody knows Paul, he was, from what I know, he was diagnosed with bipolar and he was on medication. So Paul could be real intense. And if he got mad and mean, he was a different person. And in this particular situation, and even all the guys were looking at him, he's like, do it again. And he'd shoot me off. And every time he's trying to get me higher and higher. And I almost broke my neck a couple of times, to be honest with you, because he's over rotating me. I'm flying. I'm as high as you've ever seen a background. I'm almost going out of the ring. That's how intense it was. So after a few, I acted like it was no big deal because I didn't want him thinking I'm a pussy, or because him and I get along, and I didn't want to intensify it anymore because he was one of those guys that he fucking snapped, dude. Like, we never knew what he was going to do.
Right.
So he just gave me, I don't know, 10 backdrops in a row, and each one's higher and higher and more intense. And like I said, I literally almost flew out of the ring on a couple of them. I'm not kidding. Like my legs would hit the ropes. Like guys were like, dude, that's enough. Like fucking, we gotta stop this. That's enough. But he kept going. He's like, fucking do it again, fucking do it again. So and that's just the way Paul was. And sometimes me and Chuck Plumble would joke, me and him would be standing there. Paul would come out of his office and me and Chuck would like duck. We'd be like, oh shit, what's he gonna do? Like,
Right.
It's kind of like it's one of them with your the stepchild. You beat so much, you kind of wonder if you're gonna get hit when he walks out the door. So
Right.
But that was a shoot. That was a legit shoot. Me and Chuck always had eyes in the back of our heads when he come storming out of the office because we never knew what the fuck was gonna happen.
What's going on? He's just pissed off if he didn't want to be there?
Well, like I said, he was bipolar.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
So a lot of times he wouldn't take his medication. So he'd come out of the office just fucking ball of fire and fucking yelling, threatening to fire everybody, and it was crazy.
When you look at like him and that feud that he had with the like Palumbo O'Hare, remember when he came into WCW? That was a little bit of a shoot then.
Well, I would say yes, only for the fact that Paul and dude, do you remember what good a shape Paul was in when he came back for that pay-per-view?
Yes.
That it was wasn't it Fall Brawl in Buffalo we were in?
Fall Brawl, yep.
And dude, he looked phenomenal. This dude is so funny though. This is another example of Paul Orndorff. I remember he used to have the lady come down to the power plant to cut his hair. He had she would come into the power plant and cut hair. So Paul would always like, hey, anybody else want their haircut? And hell, I didn't need a haircut. So, so Paul would always have his haircut. Well, I remember the first time this lady walked in the power plant, like Paul was so off the wall sometimes. And he was so proud of him being back in shape again that he'd rip his shirt off, start flexing his abs, rip his pants off, be in his underwear, start flexing his quads in front of this lady. And I'm like, I don't know if that's a good idea.
Right.
And, this was back in 2000, 99, 2000, where it just started getting, corporate, we're in the corporate office. You might want to calm down, Paul, in front of women anyway, in your underwear. So, but Paul always pushed the envelope when it came to stuff like that, man. He just didn't care. He was just that intense.
He was in awesome shape when he came back. I mean, he
looked great. Dude, and that night he got hurt. So I go to the hospital. We're in Buffalo, and I went to the hospital with Ross Foreman, which worked for TNA, and he was a kind of a PR guy.
Yeah.
So me and Ross actually went to the hospital, and I remember walking in the room, man, and he was sitting there he had the green tights on, and he almost looked like a professional bodybuilder. He was that freaking shredded, and he looked amazing, other than his right bicep.
Yeah.
Where
of
he's
course,
got the nerve damage.
Yeah.
But and that always. But I mean, dude, he looked amazing that night, and he was intense in the hospital. He was like, "Oh, there ain't nothing wrong with me. I'm fine."
Just a stinger, I guess. Really, when from the power driver.
Yeah, probably. I never really heard the actual diagnosis for what happened to him, but because some people were saying stroke, but who knows? I don't know. I really don't know what happened to him. He might have had a stroke. Who knows? But I never knew.
Yeah, it looked like just like a stinger, just because the way he landed, like the impact of the, coming right down on obviously on his ass, but maybe the pelvic bone, it just looked like maybe a stinger.
Yeah. Plus, Paul wasn't spring chicken then either.
Right.
He was what, late 50s, 60 maybe?
Yeah.
He was old. Time? Yeah, I'm not sure how 50s. Old he was.
Yeah, definitely in his 50s. Yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, it wasn't like he was 25. You know what I mean? So anything could have happened, really.
Yep, for sure. It's interesting with you, and I was just thinking, because you mentioned Goldberg before, I always think about that spear that he gave you, and it was recently, I forget who he said, but he said, I don't know if he was on Ziggler, he said something, it was more like almost like a recency thing, like where he's like, oh, that was maybe my best spear, but I'm thinking to myself, well, you got to give Kwee Wee the respect.
Well, now he was on that Chris Van Vliet podcast.
Right.
Now I saw this because somebody sent it to me. He actually mentioned my name first.
Oh, I didn't see that. Okay.
But, nobody ever says my name right. They always say Kwee Wee. He's like, Kwee Wee had a good one. That was the first words out of his mouth, which Bill has put me over before with the spear, before all this social media crap. He actually put me over in Japan in front of like Muda and Kawada and all the boys over there. And Jimmy Yang was there because Jimmy called me and said, man, Goldberg just put you over in Japan. We were at dinner and they asked him what the best spear was. And he said, it was you, Allan Funk. And I was like, damn, appreciate that. So, but Bill has done a couple interviews where he's mentioned my name. So, you know,
I think that's
thanks
the
for
best
mentioning
one,
my name.
though. Yeah, I think that's the best one, though.
I remember they had like the top 5 on these things they send out on social media or whatever. And I think I was like 5th, maybe. And I was thinking, nah, I'm a little biased to my spear with him, dude. There was no other spear like mine. There wasn't. And I think Chris Jericho might have been the number 1 in that category where they did the Hell in a Cell or he threw the plexiglass spear.
Oh, yeah. That was a good one.
That was the number 1 on that one, which, I mean, come on, dude. That wasn't – dude, you weren't 15 feet in the air and coming one way and get smashed.
Yeah.
Dude, like, he bruised my ribs, and he didn't even want to do that one. I guarantee you all them other spears he talks about, they wanted to do it, or he wanted to do it. I had to talk him into doing the one on me because it was so bad.
Yeah, because there's no way to kind of like protect you. You're gonna get killed.
And I knew it, and I even told him that. And he goes, Allan, he goes, I do not want to do that. I'm going to hurt you. And I said, Bill, listen, dude, we trained at the power plant. You know I'm not a pussy. I want to do it, man. I want, and I told him this. I said, when someone asks you what the greatest spear ever was, or if they have a documentary, I want to be the video they show on that video. I want to be the video. I want it to be me there. So let's do it. So he's like, all right. So we did the timing a couple times. And then even after we did the timing probably 5 times, he come over to me and goes, we can't do it. I said, Bill, are you fucking kidding me? Like, we got to do this. We have to. And he's like, so we did it a couple more times, got the timing in the ring. He goes, dude, that timing's perfect. And I said, we got to do it, Bill. I said, we can't not do it. I said, you have to do it. He goes, dude, I'm going to kill you. And I said, I know you are, but that's the great part of it. It's going to be awesome. So he ended up doing it. So it was good. At the time, it was great, dude. Everybody loved it. Everybody was talking about it. So it was cool.
Oh, it was awesome. I feel like maybe like the recency thing, if it's WWE, they mention it, or like he did a good one at Ziggler, which was not that recent, but obviously more recent than the WCW stuff. So I feel like that gets mentioned, or maybe people that interview him maybe haven't even seen WCW. You know what I mean? So you never know, but they need to see.
Yeah, because I met that Chris Van Vliet, and he didn't even know who I was. Didn't have a clue.
Yeah,
about
I think
that kind of to me makes me feel like he's only working with guys that are like nowadays. Like, he don't have any clue about wrestling back in the day.
Yeah, I think he started. Correct me if I'm wrong, and I might be wrong, but I think he started watching wrestling in like the 2000s or something like that.
Probably.
I don't think he's like a lifelong fan. I don't think anyway.
No, but you know what? I met him up at Flair's last match in Nashville, and it's funny. He was actually on, I think it was Channel 19 in Cleveland, working. I don't know if he did the news or sports, or I don't know what he did on TV. Like on the, he was actually on one of the channels. It was either Fox or CBS or one of those. I can't remember, but that's kind of a common thing we have in common because I'm from Ohio, so I knew what channel he was talking about. And then, but when I talked to him about wrestling, he acted like he didn't give 2 shits who I was talking to him about wrestling. So it was kind of discouraging for me, because I actually like the guy. I like his content. And
yeah, great.
I actually went up to him to talk to him to, tell him that I like his content and stuff, but he almost seemed like he was kind of blowing me off, to be honest with you.
Yeah, he's great. He's a great interviewer. So I just don't think, as far as I know, I don't think he's like a lifelong fan or anything, but obviously he likes wrestling nowadays and up until a certain point. Because I remember he mentioned like Rock Hogan was kind of like his jumping off point. And obviously that's 2002, which is an awesome match. But yeah, you got to watch Goldberg at WCW when he was really in his prime. I mean, that was prime Goldberg.
Yeah, if you're going to interview the guy, you got to know something about him in WCW. Did you even know who his first opponent was?
I don't know. I would hope so, right? I would hope so.
Well, the one that started that was Hugh Morris, right?
Yeah. Yep.
The Street.
Yep. September '97 on Nitro. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So I was in his. Actually, I think it was in his second. They had a second streak.
Yes, when Russo decided to give him another one. Yeah.
I was in the second streak, which sucked. It would have been better to have been in the first one, but actually,
Right.
you know how I learned from watching the spear that he did on Rick Steiner is the one that gave me the idea to do the one I did, because if you notice the one Rick Steiner did, and I think we were in Denver, I can't remember, but I remember watching it there. I was backstage watching on the monitor, and when I watched Rick Steiner step up to him and he jumped kind of in the air and his feet were off the air, and I remember saying that was one of the better spears I've seen because his feet were out off the ground. Because a lot of guys kind of fought it and they were like, oh, they were trying to take the impact.
Yep.
But Rick, if you notice, Rick, he kind of jumped into it. His feet were off the ground, and it looked way better to me. So when actually Chuck Bumble came up to me, he goes, dude, you're wrestling Goldberg tonight. And I was like, get the hell out of here. I ain't wrestling Goldberg. He's like, dude, you are. And I said, I still didn't believe it. So I went around back and the board was hanging up, and I was like, it said Goldberg versus Kwee Wee. And I was like, holy shit, I am wrestling him. So then I immediately was out in the ring, and he was out there, and I said, Bill, I got an idea, man. Check this out. So and not that match was 30 seconds, our whole match.
Right. But, short. Yeah.
I orchestrated the whole thing. It was awesome. Cause I pretty much told him from the time he walked out to we weren't supposed to do the jackhammer. Cause I told him, I said, listen, if you do this spear, you don't need to do the jackhammer. But that's his mentality. He's like, I got to do the jackhammer because that's my move.
Right.
But I told him, I said, dude, if a train runs over a fucking deer, are you going to come back and run it over again?
Yeah, you don't need to.
That's how I explained it to him. I said, or if a train hits a car, what else is there to do to the car other than run it over with a train? And I said, when you do this spear, dude, you don't need to pick me up for a jackhammer because it won't be realistic. I'll be dead. Like, why pick up a dead freaking carcass off the ground?
Yep.
And he picked me up anyway. If you watch the match, I look at him, I go, what in the hell are you doing, dude? Like, you don't need to do this. And then if you notice the jackhammer, he actually hurt me more on the jackhammer than in the spear because my ribs were already bruised. And when he twisted me and I landed crooked on the jackhammer, and it about killed me because I already had bruised ribs. And if you ever had bruised ribs, it fucking hurt. So
yeah, unnecessary there. But obviously that part of his finish or whatever.
Yeah, but I was always taught with the kind of psychology a little bit. Like I explained it to him. You run me over with a train, there's nothing else you can do.
True.
Why give me a jackhammer? Didn't make any sense to me, but he did it. He's Goldberg, I'm not. So
I love that you mentioned the Rick Steiner one because I was thinking, I was like, obviously Kwee Wee won yours. It was probably my favorite, but there's a good one, obviously. Actually, a couple of good ones to Rick Steiner. A really good one to La Parca takes a good one. Jericho actually on the entranceway in WCW takes a really good one. Like Goldberg kind of just comes out and they're on the entranceway and Goldberg
I think I do remember that because there was no pad or nothing on that entrance. And I wouldn't have wanted to take that one.
Yeah, he just absolutely just comes out of nowhere. It kills him.
Because even the pads that WCW had back in the day, they were just those little pads. Like, remember back in high school, they used to be on the wall below the basketball court?
Yep.
That's all those pads were.
Yeah.
And I remember once I took a suplex on that and a body slam. I said, screw that shit. I ain't taking no more bumps on them pads because it was like hitting concrete, dude. So,
and there was one on not Scott Steiner. Who am I thinking of? Oh, Raven, when he wins a U.S. title. It's almost like Raven, it doesn't realize it's about to happen. He just destroys Raven with it, but it's great.
I kind of do remember Ravens a little bit. Yeah.
Almost seems like Raven was not expecting it, oddly, but obviously he was. But it was almost like he kind of like speared him out of his boots. It was so good.
No, Scotty was great back in the day, man.
Oh God, yeah, yep.
Scotty Raven. Yeah, he was good back in the day, man. I do kind of remember his spear now that you say that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I got the idea from mine on watching Rick Steiner do his. I thought Rick took it better than anybody, honestly.
Yeah, literally like flew almost. Yeah. Like it was just like a giant car crash. It was awesome. Yeah, just really, really good stuff. I was just thinking of that spear because I'm like, man, these guys, they got to watch old school WCW, see these awesome spears.
Well, there was some good ones, right? Now, I mean, now everybody does a spear now, right? I mean, shit, now Agley Steiner's boy does it now.
Yeah.
And he's awesome too, man. Yep. He's great, man. Some of the stuff he does, he's so athletic, man.
Yeah, it's such a
And he
freak.
sounds just like his uncle, don't he?
He literally is a combination of Rick and Scott, like combined, like
He
the
is. He
athleticism
really
of
is.
Scott, but looks like Rick, but also kind of looks like Scott. Yeah.
See, I've never met him as an adult. I knew him when he was a kid because Rick used to bring him to some of the shows. So I mean, I'm talking when he was just a young kid. You know, I don't even know
Yeah.
how old he is now. How old is he now?
God, 26, something like that. He's pretty young.
So when I knew him, yeah, because I mean, he was probably 3 years old, maybe when I knew him, when I met him.
Let's see, Braun Breaker, 27. He's 27 years old.
Yeah, he must have been
just turned
3, 4
27.
years old
Yep.
when I knew him back in 2000. So
When you look at current wrestling, do you watch that much or not really?
I really don't, man, honestly, because like I told you, I get up 4:30 every morning, and a lot of these shows. I mean, I know I can watch them later, but I just it's not so much that I'm bitter at the business. It's just honestly, if I had to wrestle a match right now in WWE, I'm not even sure what they do up there, to be honest with you. Like, it's just because I don't really watch it, and AEW is so brutal, I can't even watch that stuff. So, yeah, I mean, I do honestly. If I watch the wrestling, I almost rather watch the women wrestling, to be honest with you.
Really? Wow.
It's to me, it seems like it's more. It seems like they try harder in my eyes. When I watch the women wrestling, actually, the last match I actually watched was the last pay-per-view. And I watched the women's match more than any of them.
Wow, interesting. Any woman wrestler catch your eye? Like any one do you think is like the best?
I mean, I like Rhea Ripley because she's pretty realistic. Like, she can do some stuff where you actually believe it, and she's pretty intense.
Yeah.
Now, I used to like. I kind of like Jax a little bit, Nia Jax, but she seems like she's a little dangerous. I don't really know because I've never met her, but I mean, I'm trying to think who Rhea Ripley. She's real believable. There's a couple other girls I don't honestly don't even really know if I know their names. Who else was in that match?
Liv Morgan, right?
Oh yeah, I like her. She's pretty good. Now the stuff I hate with the women is like Bianca when she swings her hair and hits girls with her hair.
Yeah,
like that shit drives me nuts. But she's a great athlete though, Bianca Belair too. She's pretty good. I really don't like Bailey. I don't get how she's been so popular for so long. Yeah, it's just my personal.
Like when you look at some of them, like Bianca Belair, a great athlete. They're really getting actual like athletes into the.
Oh yeah, Bianca.
Again.
She went to Tennessee. She played or she did
track and field. Right? Yep.
Yeah, she's a great athlete. You know, Nia Jax probably not so much of a good athlete. She's just a big, body. But Rhea Ripley's pretty athletic too, though, for her size.
Yeah, very, very athletic.
So, yeah, I'd say Rhea Ripley's probably my favorite one up there in WWE now. I mean, Charlotte Flair was probably my favorite. And then recently, is AJ Styles come back yet?
Not yet.
Because recently, him and we actually on opposite teams. We played in the celebrity softball game down here in Atlanta.
Nice.
And it was for veterans. It was called the Swing for a Cause. Have you ever heard of that?
Yeah. Yep.
So the guys that put it on, they're lifelong friends with AJ Styles. So they had Arn Anderson was there, Brock Anderson was there, and you had the Johnny Joey, the guy that the double amputee from he works on Fox News.
Okay.
You know who that is? So he was there, great guy. There was a lot of good veterans down there that I met, man, that I'm still talk to on like social media and stuff. We always, send each other messages and stuff. So I met a lot of good guys in this celebrity softball tournament. So me and AJ, you can go on my Instagram and see photos of me and AJ did a gimmick. There was a lot of actors and stuff in this thing too. And this guy that was emceeing is an actor. He's on all these popular TV shows. He come up to me and goes, well, AJ, right? He goes, you up for doing some dumb stuff? I said, dude, I'm always up for doing dumb stuff. So he's like, good. I knew I could count on you. So at one point, we're going through the after the like middle way through the softball. Me and AJ walk past each other on the field, and I shoulder bump him, and then him and I get into it. So me and him were kind of like locking up right at the pitcher's mound, and then the MC comes down there with the mic. He's like, "Oh God, we're gonna have a fight," and this and that. So then me and AJ lock up, and then we break the lock up, and then we go to lock up again, and I rip my shirt off, and AJ's like, "We're ready to go," and then we stop all of a sudden and do 1, 2, 3, 4. We declare a thumb war and all that,
Yeah, nice.
So we thumb wrestle, and then I called a spot on the fly, and he's like, "Oh shit!" So I said, "Drop toe me on the pitcher's mound." So I went to go after him. He drop toed me. I did a face plant in the dirt.
Nice. Look at that.
So we
calling it on the fly. I love that.
And then we were eating lunch later, and AJ's like, "Dude, you called the spot in the ring." I said, "Dude, we always back old school. That's all we called in the ring, kid."
I like that little improvisation there from you. Yeah, taking it the extra step. Yeah.
And I thought AJ said he was coming back, so. But I wasn't sure because I didn't think he's kind of injured again, isn't he?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. We talked about he was injured a little bit, but I didn't really get into it with him. But AJ's always been a cool guy. I've known AJ since I first moved down to Atlanta 26 years ago. I was wrestling with him up in Anarchy with Bill Behrens.
Oh, shit. Nice.
Back in the day, yeah. So actually, me and Lenny Lane wrestled AJ Styles and Jerry Lynn for the belts.
Yeah, TNA.
Belts.
Yeah.
Yep. That was one of the first pay-per-views up there.
Great tag team, you and Lenny Lane and TNA.
Oh, dude, we had so much fun, me and Lenny, and they promised the world and gave us nothing. We were supposed to be the tag team champs going into the door. Dude, they Jeff Jarrett and Jerry Jarrett, and they're all like, "Oh man, we love you guys. You guys are gonna be our tag team champs," and blah blah blah. And then the night we were supposed to win the belts, they come down to us and said, "Hey, we're gonna put the straps on Jerry Lynn and AJ Styles." And me and Lenny's like, "They're not even a tag team." Like, what?
Right.
Like they just threw them together to beat us, which is my whole career summed up in one match. We're gonna put the belt on you. Okay, we changed our mind right before you walk out to the ring.
Right. Yeah. Come on, the Rainbow Express should have been tag champs. Come on.
Oh, dude, we people love that gimmick. I don't even know why, but I think it was just because me and Lenny were so good together.
Yeah,
Lenny was awesome, dude. I love working with Lenny, and him and I are still good buddies now. I talk to him all the time. He's actually a nurse practitioner now. He's in school to be a doctor.
Wow, nice. Good for him. Good for Lenny.
Yeah, so
nice.
Lenny's doing real well. Yeah.
Nice. So. As we hit the wind down, we head towards the finish. I know you got an early start tomorrow. What's next? Anything coming down the pike?
Well, I was actually looking at my calendar. I might ride with Ernest the Cat Miller and Tony Carr, which is he wrestled on WCW Saturday Night. I don't know if you ever heard of Tony Carr or not.
Yep. Oh yeah.
But he's good friends with the Cat. They want me to go to Waverly, Ohio with them this weekend and do like they're doing an autograph signing, but of course I'm not booked on it, but I think I might go just to hang out and talk to some I think Scotty Steiner's going to be there. I wouldn't mind seeing him. I hadn't seen him in a while, but that might be fun doing that. So I might do that this weekend with them guys.
Nice, very cool. Are you on social media? Are you still?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram, Allan Funk or Funk Allan on Facebook and Instagram. I do have a X account, but I don't really get on it too much. I don't post a lot of stuff. Now I post, if I see like old wrestling guys I'm with, I'll take pictures of it and then post that. But honestly, I don't really post a lot of stuff, but I do a lot of, I post a lot of, I'm not really allowed to say the M word, which is Michigan. So I post a lot of hate on Michigan.
Right. Especially after beating Ohio State. Yes, of course. You can't.
But you know what? Even though they beat them, we're still in the playoffs. So we'll see what happens.
Very, very true. Well, Allan, thank you again for joining me. Got to have you back on sometime.
Yeah, you know what? We need to get me and Lenny together and come on here, man. Because Lenny's a great interview, dude. He's got a great sense of humor. He's funnier than hell.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's get Lenny.
But you know what? We might have to wait till he gets out of school. I don't know when he finishes up school, but he's busy. He's always. I'll text him and know he won't text me back for a while because I know he's always busy. But he'll always call me back. So maybe next time I talk to him, I'll see if he wants to come on your show because I love doing podcasts with Lenny, dude. He's great.
Yeah, definitely. Let's think about that one. Let's do it.
You know who Goldilocks is? We just did one with her. Well, it's probably been a year, but we had her dying laughing. So.
Oh, of course.
You know who Goldilocks is, don't you?
Oh, yeah. I've interviewed her for you. She's great. Yeah, she's awesome.
Yeah, I of course we knew her from TNA. So.
Yes. Yep.
And I did one of her music videos with her.
Oh, I didn't know that. Interesting.
That first one, it was like a public service announcement. It was a long video for like suicide and suicide prevention.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
I think it's called All to Me or All to You. All to You, maybe. Yeah. So, yeah, she's great.
We will get you back and maybe Lenny. That's for sure. But Alan,
that'd be awesome, man. Yeah, John, thanks, bud. I appreciate it, man.